Hello everyone, my name is Shelby and this is the series where I reveal what is inside these mystery pottery molds I found on Gumtree. Hello and welcome to mold 52, and do you know what that means? We've been doing one mold every week for the last year. We finally hit the year mark and that is so wild and amazing, and thank you so much for being here and joining along for the ride. I definitely didn't think I would be here 52 weeks later after collecting these pieces, but I'm just so glad you love them as much as I do and uncovering these vintage beauties and all the mystery surprises that are inside. So I poured this one up, I let it set and open it up to reveal a gorgeous 4 set of boho cow skulls. They are really lovely and quite a delightful piece and very in style. So here's a look at the mold. It's 3-inch skulls by I'm going to try and say it. Sodio Ceramics. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm so sorry for mispronouncing that. And this mold is from 1990. So when I pulled this mold out, it has a little indent in the nose detail where it says to cut out, and just enjoy this really satisfying cut out. I don't know how I managed to do it so neatly on the camera, but just enjoy that. And I sort of thought about what you would use these for, like I do every single week. And I try and think of even like new interpretations for them. But I thought to start off, I would do some of them with some glaze because I love to play with some glaze and just see how the colors shimmer, shine, change in the kiln. And also, I guess, to show you guys the different glazes as well. And then what I was thinking about doing is having a play with some lusters on top of the glaze to see sort of those effects. It was so exciting seeing this mold come out because so far we've had a lot of kitschy designs, a lot of kooky, really hardcore vintage, or like really questionable 90s pieces. We love them, but we hate them, and we love to hate them, we hate to love them. But this one is really tasteful in many ways because it really feeds into that Western boho theme, and it's such an easy shape and such a simple shape to remain timeless. I guess with bones and like real things, it's really hard for them to date. Like if I got an apple mold out, you could do so much with it and it would never really change style. But whereas when you've got like that strawberry mold with the cartoony faces that are on trend for that time period, it makes it a little bit less, I don't know, likely to stick around and not be creepy years down the track when someone finds the molds on Gumtree and reflows them up. So I really like that this piece is from 1990 and it still definitely has a space in a modern trend and a modern style. It really feeds into that Western country but slides into boho and is really adaptable to either style. With that said, with the size of these and the shape of them, I was trying to think of like what exactly would you use them for, because I love things that exist, I guess, and I also like knowing if something has a function and a greater purpose than just to exist. Maybe I'm searching for a deeper meaning in things that don't really need a deeper meaning, but I kind of like to think about things in a way, how could we use this? How could we interpret this? How could we elevate this design to be more than just an existence? And that's just what I think about every mold. So yes, I'm going to leave space for it to just exist, but what could these be used for? My first thought was maybe for like little drawer handles. They would be really sweet because they've got that hole right in the placement where you could put them on a drawer. My other thought was for fairy lights, where you could cut out the little hole and little holes in the eyes, and then the mouth detail, pouring them a bit thinner so that the light can kind of shine through and you could string them up like boho fairy lights. The other thought I was thinking about was maybe attaching them to mugs, but then I didn't do that only because the horns are so pointy. I was worried that if you put it on a mug, someone might stab themselves like whilst they're drinking, and that's just not a good idea. But I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts in the comments. So let me know below what you think that they would be really useful for, or maybe a really cool interpretation on what you could do with them, because I'm really keen to hear your creative ideas because they're always so wonderful every week for each mold. Once I had added glaze to the first lot, I decided to do some underglaze details and play around with the other skulls. So the first one I did some beautiful succulents and cacti, which you've just seen. And then the second one I went in with a cobalt that I've used in a few other videos. And I wanted to do this really sort of beautiful rice flower design. So rice flower is like almost like a golden wattle, but a little bit smaller flowers, and it sort of has all these streaming stems and then little puffs of flower at each end, kind of like little pom-poms. So I was doing with the cobalt, and the cobalt's like a water, and I was trying to dip the dotting tool in to do my little puffs, and it just would not work, and I really hated how it was looking. So I decided to sponge all of that cobalt wash off, and I was kind of hoping that it was never going to quite get all of the cobalt off. So I was kind of hoping that it would leave a sort of wash stain on top. And I would come back in with that cobalt wash to do a different design that I hadn't planned to do. I thought I would just experiment with doing sort of a detail style rose. And that was to sort of just like add layers of petals and then add this sort of stroking softness in between each petal to give it a bit of texture, and then adding some leaves. So I did about 4 roses in the end, one on the top, in the center, or a little bit off center. I didn't really plan for it. And then one on either side, and then one on the back of the skull head. And to be honest, I wasn't like wrapped with it, but I think that the results looked really cool in the end. So you have to wait for the end, or you can skip there, I don't mind. You do you. But I just really wanted that bright blue. So what I did was I came in with my bright blue underglaze instead and did the rice flower, because I had more control with the thicker material with the dotting tool. So I was able to apply all those little sort of puffs of rice flour and add all the little streaking details with more precision than what I had with the cobalt wash. So definitely need to play around with that cobalt wash even more to try and figure out how to get that sort of detail into it. Whether that might be that I just next time do all the little pom-pom puffs with my brush and not the dotting tool instead. But I think this will be a good experiment, is what I'm going to say. A good experiment to see the difference between the underglaze and the richness of the cobalt, just to show how you might want to buy the cobalt over a blue underglaze or vice versa. So the other skulls, I did one with my classic flowering gum because I love a good Australian floral moment, and then I've got one with lots of flowers because I could not stick to one idea this week, and I want to play with lusters on all of these. I want to give it a nice little gold luster sheen, maybe do some mother of pearl, which I just ordered thanks to the peer pressure in the comments on a previous video. I finally bought some of that, so I'm hoping that this will give it a level of magic and a level that's a little bit more exciting than the finished results in other videos where I've used either just a glaze or just an underglaze. Now I have used gold luster in a previous video, but I want to try more detailed work this week. Once I had finished adding all those little details, I bisque fired the underglaze on, because I find if I don't do that, sometimes the glaze doesn't really like to attach everywhere. So I bisque fired these, and then I was able to glaze them. I did this by dunking them in and just sort of like holding them gently so that it wouldn't all go in the glaze, and I had the flat bottom for them to rest in the kiln. I don't use kiln still, it's just personal preference. And I had my first ever, whoops. My hand was just in shock, and I watched this back and remember how I felt when it happened. But I just sponged all the glaze off, and I decided not to glaze this one. And the reason for that is because gold luster has a different sheen if it's an unglazed piece. So I just took that as a sign that I needed to leave one unglazed. I have never dropped anything in the glaze bucket before, so now I can't say that. This was my first time of dropping something in the glaze bucket and having to fetch it out in total shock. So yeah, I just sponged that all clean. It doesn't have any glaze on it, and I thought, you know what, unglazed, and we'll show the difference between gold luster or the lusters on a glazed piece versus an unglazed piece, because it has a different shine. I was mildly impressed with the results and what they all look like once they went through the kiln. And you might notice that I changed outfits because I waited a number of days for my lusters to arrive in the post, and they came literally yesterday afternoon at 3 p.m. with no time for me to lustify them. So that is what it is, but I want to show you what I'm going to be using in a future video, and I'll definitely hold these skulls back to show you how I've used them and what they're going to look like with this luster. So I've got my pearl luster, which is in this beautiful bottle, and then I've got the gold luster with the gold label. This was expensive. This little bottle cost me about 100 Australian dollars, and this is my old one that cost me 50. So yep, that sucks. I will be doing it in a future video, so hold on to that. But here is the finished results, and I'm showing you next to the glaze so you can see a real life glaze example with different lighting, because I know that sometimes when I go glaze shopping, it's really hard to know whether that lighting is accurate on the Pottery website. So here is me showing you the glazes in action and what they truly look like. They are all really stunning glazes. I use Potter's Choice by Amico, which is an American brand, and then a lot of High Fire Chrysanthos glazes, which are really lovely as well. Some of them you can get a really lovely washy look, and just ignore that yellow one with the horn with the little bit of gold luster on it. I did start, but I didn't have enough to finish them all with my old bottle. So that's why we didn't get to that, but I promise it will be in a future video. I said that last time about something else, but this time it will be, because I've got a future mystery mold that definitely needs some luster. I'm really impressed with the glaze, and I think that they're going to look really cool when I finally get that luster on there and get a bit of shine and glamour happening. The first of the underglaze detailed skulls is our flowering gum. It looks beautiful as always. I'm really excited to see how that luster will look on that compared to what it looks like on a glazed piece, which adds that shine that sits underneath the luster, giving it that really beautiful shine of gold. So I'm curious. I'm going to add some sort of like dots of gold on those flower petals, and then the succulent piece, I'm probably just going to add some little speckles and highlights in areas, maybe even around the horns, just to maybe even the whole horns. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I haven't had to think that far because I was waiting for the luster for the most of the week. Now with the blue, I love this rice flower design. It's so lovely. I'm really loving my blues at the moment. It's got a really nice pop, but it almost looks like something's crawling and growing all over the skull. And then here is our cobalt blue design. As I said before at the start, that I was hoping it would have this sort of cobalt wash over it, and it did. It looks so nice. I like that it's got a subtlety underneath it, and I love the richness of the color. Here's the comparison between the two, and I definitely love the richness of the cobalt over the underglaze, but I think the underglaze has a really nice pigment if you can't get your hands on any cobalt. I like them both. They both work really well for a blue. Alrighty, that is this week a very tasteful mold that I really like. I'm sorry I didn't get the luster in time, but I will be doing it again in a future video. I absolutely promise, because I need a full kiln to be able to fire luster, and a future mystery mold has a detail that I want luster on. Now, usually this is the time where I say this is what we have in store for next week, but I'm taking a break next week because I just launched an exciting new venture, which is called Mouldy Bisquits, which is paint your own pottery DIY kits. So I'm selling these DIY kits at moldybisquits.com.au, and you can get this week's mystery mold right now. So this venture started when I first got the mystery molds. I've been working on this for a very long time because so many of you want to be able to paint the bisque yourself. You can see more details on the website. No kiln needed, so I just hope that there are a lot of creativity that you can enjoy at the comfort of your own home and paint alongside with me. It should be a lot of fun. So I'm going to be back in a fortnight, but in the meantime, let me know below which mold we should do next week. You've got the choices between option 1 and option 2. The winning one will be revealed in a fortnight. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, doing your thing. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed this week's reveal.